Okay, stuff like this. You often hear this argument about kids these days don't know. I saw an interesting picture. It was a meme going around that was a picture of some kids in the future, and they were looking down at a book on the floor, and they were saying, "What is that?" I didn't know what a book was. I obviously don't know how to use handwriting or to read a physical book. Everything's digitalized and on computers, and it makes you think: is that necessarily a bad thing?
No, because they could have their information on their phone or on their watch, and they almost don't need a book. You know, like obviously, it's romantic to think about a book, but all a book is just words and ideas expressed in that specific literary form. Yeah, that is not the be all and end all.
Okay, handwriting.
It's just a romantic way of looking at how it is now versus how it's going to be.
I think one of the biggest things to take into consideration when talking about this is the idea of what if technology isn't as stable as we think it is? What if all the computer systems did one day go down for whatever reason? Is it important to be able to have some sort of to be able to understand?
So you're talking about ethics and science,
even like handwriting. You know, like should you know if everything's being moved to computers? I hear that they're going to start doing VCE exams on computers within a few years. You know, so. Is that just the way it's going? Does it a pen's just becoming an outdated source of technology?
If it is, so be it. Less trees cut down for paper. Look at it that way. Why do we need that if we can type it like digitally?
True. When I was in school, there was no laptops on the desks then.
Nothing at all.
And now you go to school and there's iPads. There's laptops.
And I'm sure I know a lot of teachers, and a lot of teachers that are very close to me in my life that they talk about the decline of handwriting now with children.
Yeah, exactly. And of course they're going to say in a negative way, because it's part of their
what they're being taught to teach.
Your worldview is ingrained, and other worldviews as they emerge seem scary and frightening. I just made up an analogy. Think about when Henry Ford invented the first automobile. People going, yeah, but like it doesn't have the natural beauty of a horse, you know, the connection with an animal, the safety, and it's not mechanized, you know. But we look at it now and go, of course we moved on
more
from
efficient.
horses.
It's
more efficient. Yeah. Well, there you go. It's the same can be said about the pen, you know, like
sure.
So you can look at it that way. You just have to go back and think, you know, or like,
and that
what is this light bulb invention? You know, you can't beat the element of fire and its warmth and in its natural light. Yeah. Well, hooey to that, because technologies move forward. You know?
Hooey, huh?
Hooey.
I don't. You know, I don't think.
I've never said hooey.
No. That's why I had to repeat that. I don't know. You lost me on hooey.
I'm aghast.
Yeah.
But my choice of vocabulary.
Yeah. What was the conversation?
But yeah, well, I suppose I try. Always talking about science, I try to, I suppose I try to be more open-minded to controversial and different types of science.
Just going back to what you're saying then about, you know, the car
or types of technologies, right?
The car and horse analogy. I suppose the ultimate goal of science and technology is to make things more efficient, right? To make things more user-friendly and more I suppose to automate that's the end game, isn't it? To try to automate the majority of the industry to remove.
So there's no end game. There's no end game.
No,
it's just an entropic process that certain technologies fill niches where they appear. If the niches never appear, then those technologies will never exist. If certain funding backs certain technologies, then those technologies will be thrust into something. It's completely
what I mean by end game is to
how can you say there's an end game?
No. I mean to get to the point where humans aren't required to do manual labor anymore. To make everything as efficient as possible. As you say, going from horse and cart, where you have to control pretty much everything that's going on, to a car. Now they've got automatic cars. Cars are only getting more easier to drive, more efficient, more comfortable. And that's just the aim of the game, isn't it? To make things easier for everyone.
It seems to be like technology is getting smarter and smarter and smarter.
Yeah.
But does that make us smarter? Where does that leave majority of the population?
Yeah, that's it.
Like, do they start to get left behind in that? Because it seems like everything, say like maps and GPSs, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you had to read a map and you had to learn the way how to get there. Otherwise, you didn't get there. And now you just slap a GPS on the windscreen and it takes you there. You don't have to think about it anymore.
I remember reading that Einstein quote, and you know what? I'm not going to quote it directly because I don't remember it directly, but it was something along the lines of when technology takes over our humanity, we will be, you know, we'll see a world full of idiots. You know what I mean? When you know,
but I think that's still Einstein talking in the way that everyone talks about ingrained worldviews being pushed up against upcoming technologies. There's always going to be that fear. You said maps right then. As soon as you said maps, I thought, okay, well, map making, cartography is a technology in itself. Making a map, it was the process of a map that you used to read before your GPS was printed out, like using a whole host of techniques and things like that were labored and things like that. Before maps, you know, there was just looking at stars or just picking a direction and going. So like there's always
the coastline,
there's always going to be these steps that seem hard to cross, or you kind of think, was life better before that? Was life better before that? Was life better before that? And you can't really argue that.
I suppose
it wasn't better. It was just different, you know.
You could look at it in the way that Richard Feynman did, and said perhaps the pursuit of science and the pursuit of truth will be like peeling back the layers of an onion. We're always going to think we're at the point where we've gone as far as we can go, but we're going to just be able to keep peeling back and keep figuring out more and keep learning more. And there's never, as you said, there's no end game. We're just going to get there. We're just going to keep figuring out more and more and more because there's always more to figure out.
I think in Feynman specifically then was talking about the nature of reality. Whether we can find out the real truth about how everything works, the universe, or is it intrinsically more and more difficult the further you go, or can you never reach an end? Will there always be more and more to uncover? No one knows.
I do think that idea can be applied to technological advances as well, because the more we learn about, you know, the more we learn, the more we can advance technology, and I think that will just be an ongoing process as well.
But as we said earlier, there's no fate, there's no destiny for technology. It's just happening. It's just all happening organically. The universe is just randomly spewing out more and more. You know, we're just going on this path. We happen to have these technologies. We could get all wiped out by an asteroid, and then the technology talk gets cut right there. You know, but when you were talking about, like, I suppose you touched upon, like, I suppose the ethics of science, and Einstein did talk about that too, about what's that quote about?
There's so many Einstein quotes that it's so hard to remember.
Yeah, I know, he's the best. He was a quote field, that one.
Yeah, he was too.
So I wish I could remember it. So science, technology is evolving quicker than our ability to understand its ramifications. I don't know if that's exact words, but if you think about that, that touches on the ethics of science and technology. Okay. So right now, and I suppose Jeff Goldblum said it in Jurassic Park, you kept asking whether or not we could, and never stopped to think whether or not we should.
Yeah.
So we do these things, we make up these new inventions, we do this, we do that. And yes, some of those inventions might lead to a less mobile society, or might lead to a society, you know, a less social by today's standard society and all that, because there's no boardroom talking about the moral ethics really of technology. So that it's happening as free as evolution happens. You know, it's a natural selection of technologies. It's not as if someone's picking and choosing which technologies to advance because they might be better for us in the future. We're just going for it, you know.
So I guess to wrap up, then, whenever in doubt, ask Jeff Goldblum.
I know, I always do. K-artician. K-artician. Yeah. I watched Jurassic Park the other day. It's still as good as ever.
That's a ripper.
Isn't it just a pearl? Yeah.